Hi, everybody. This is Rose Odette with the Michigan Innovation Podcast. And I am so happy to have on the podcast today, we have Milan Popovich and Erik from Cadensoft. We are going to find all about their innovative company and product line, the engine that drives innovators, which I just love that phraseology. It really begs the question of where are we going today with this innovation? And I know we focus a lot on healthcare, but as you all know, on the Michigan Innovation Podcast, we always begin with a, the origin story or about the people. And so why don't we go ahead and start with Milan? Milan, will you go ahead and tell us, your story, your experience in healthcare, which is extremely rich? Give us a little bit of background.
Rose, thank you very much, and thank you for this opportunity. Born and raised in Southeast Michigan, attended university here at Oakland University. I've been in the healthcare industry now for over 4 decades. I had responsibility for a health maintenance organization in Southeast Michigan, launched a number of different healthcare service companies over the ensuing years, and I've been in the healthcare IT space now for excess of 20 years. Much of that spent with organizations involved in building products like for electronic prescribing for physicians, integrating those products with electronic medical record applications in use across the country, et cetera. I had the good fortune of being introduced to Erik earlier this year and joined Cadensoft now about 4 or 5 months ago. So relatively new to the organization, but delighted to be here. So thank you.
Excellent, excellent. What a great background. And I remember when you and I first met, that was in the heyday of e-prescribing. And everything was we were trying to get rid of those little notepads.
Honestly,
and that people would go ahead and take those to the pharmacy. You remember
Sure.
those days? But yeah, we've come a long way since then. Well,
Indeed, we
thank you
have.
so much, Milan. It was great to hear that story. It is incredibly rich. And
Thank you.
Erik, thank you. As an entrepreneur to entrepreneur, I always love hearing about another entrepreneur's origin story and find out why they are a glutton for punishment the way I am, because we're a different breed. So Erik, why in the world did you want to start a company, and tell us a little bit about your background?
Well, thank you, Rose, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. And that's such a great way to put it. A glutton for punishment is absolutely what it is. So while I haven't been involved in the healthcare space for as long as Milan, I have been in technology and technology management positions, directorships, senior management roles throughout my career for about the past 25 years. And for the various companies that I worked for, I've always kind of had a mindset for continuous improvement and, always had that mindset of there's got to be a better way. And usually there is always a better way. And that's one of the things that I struggled with in many of the organizations that I worked for. I worked for some great organizations, but you get in there and they have their processes, they have their flows, and they're pretty rigid. And when entrepreneurs can usually see on certain opportunities and they appear to them and they want to take advantage of them, go after them and seize that opportunity. And that's not always conducive in the large corporate strategy world. So that's what led me to want to branch out on my own and take all the culmination of experience that I've had and looking at various technology organizations and their processes and say, hey, we can do this. Agile was a new methodology 15 years ago. And emerging technologies where, as we go through and we look at all the challenges that legacy systems that, dealing with those things and trying to innovate and trying to bring new things to market, you're kind of bolting on component on top of legacy system. And it really stifles innovation and rapid development and deployment. And that was an advantage that you could see with all the startups. You saw it in 2000 and again around 2010. You're seeing it now. All the newer, more nimble organizations are able to really rapidly jump on it and deliver products to the market, innovative products to the market very, very quickly. And it's because they adopt that mindset of not worrying about being, this is how we've done it. This is how it's always been done. They're very, very nimble, and, and they recognize, they see that, and it's why they're so successful. I've always subscribed to that same mentality. And I believe that there's, even in subscribing to that mentality, there is an opportunity to bring those lessons to bear to companies that, that are well established, and in demonstrating and consulting with them and working with them to help them understand the value proposition of why they might need to eat away at their own operational structure in order to emerge as something new. So that's really what propelled me to want to go out in the marketplace and work on my own to try to bring that message to smaller to medium-sized companies that were receptive to those same thoughts.
And I really think the word that they're receptive, because when you want to, I think you're extremely courageous to go into a company, to come in as kind of like a vendor or outsider, and hey, we could do this a better way. Let's try something new here. Let's the sacred cow sometimes is really not going to be what the company needs for the next few years or the next disruption. But I know that that is not always safe ground. So how do you get the courage to go in and slaughter those sacred cows?
Bulletproof vests.
Yeah, absolutely. It very much takes a like-minded individual, and that's our approach. We take a pragmatic approach to most things. We are one tool. We have one tool available or we have many tools available to us, and it really depends on what our clients, our customers need, and we dial in very closely into that. Because it matters. I mean, we can't just say, you need to do it this way. This is the answer to everything, and all your problems will be solved if we do this. We try to identify one small area where we can step in, we can make an improvement, and we can demonstrate, our processes. And we try to bite those opportunities off very, very piecemeal and slowly, out of sensitivity for, the sacred cows, and this is how we're getting things done. That's a tough sell, and we recognize that. But I think one of the things that there's two things that really differentiate us there, and we immerse ourselves in our customers' business. We take their businesses to heart. We learn, and that's one of the things that we've been very fortunate. A lot of the customers that we've worked with, their products really truly are, they make an impact, especially in the healthcare space. And they have a dramatic impact on the quality of patient lives at the end of life. You mentioned e-prescribe, and we'll get into that here in a little bit, but that's a given use case, or one example of a use case. But we take our client's mission very seriously, and where we look at it as failure is not an option. We have to look at all the angles. We have to account for the myriad of things that can go wrong in any given moment or any given transaction, and do our best to build resilient and redundant systems so that at the end of the day, those missions, our client's mission is successful. And that's one of the things that we find when working with our customers, that care and that attention to detail is oftentimes lost in pursuit of profit, and making sure that you're getting you're meeting the deliverable on time and on budget. And we try to take the approach of saying, look, we know how IT projects go. We know that they scope increases exponentially the longer you go if requirements are not really well defined. And then you go back to proper requirements definition. Typically, that's a tedious and tiresome process.
True. So it sounds like you really become an extension of their team.
That's exactly it.
You enmesh yourself in their world, so it's not like it's their customers, it's their customers are now your customers. That you care as much about the patients and the doctors or whoever their downstream client is. You sound like you are as dedicated to that as you would be to them as your client.
There, absolutely. And that, to give you an example of why that mentality exists and why it resonates so strong with me is I've spent in working in my career for other companies and launching new products and being, one of the lead engineers on those products. It's a small team, and you have to be, they're piloting it, they're rolling it out. You're in direct contact with the end users, during those pilots, and the frustration on those end users is palpable. I mean, when they call in and you can empathize with their frustration, and seeing both sides of the process where decisions are made on the business standpoint of like, well, cut this is not important, we can worry about this later, and then seeing what the downstream impact that has for end users is transformative. And we really take an approach in our mission to do everything we can to not negatively impact end users, and
Excellent.
that's a big challenge, right? And
I know we have a lot in common there. As you may know, I run this electronic medical record company where we have had over 200 hospitals using our system. And when we would go live, we would do what we would call it. We would go out on the floor, and we would say we're walking the floor today, and we would walk up and down like a med surg floor and make sure every nurse, every user, whether and then over in billing or wherever, that they were all like we were right there with them when it went live, so they weren't going it alone.
Mm-hmm. That's so important.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like Cadensoft has a great ethos, and what I'd like to do now is, what is Cadensoft? Tell us about. I know we've talked about your methodologies, we've talked about your backgrounds, both of you, very rich IT and healthcare backgrounds, a great combination. And now we have this company called Cadensoft. Can you tell us about Cadensoft and how does it provide the engine that drives innovators, which is so cool, like I said before. Talk to us about Cadensoft, and that can go to Milan or can go to Erik. Who wants to take that question?
I can go ahead and take it.
Okay.
At least start a little bit about what our core mission, like how we approach our projects, and obviously we talked a little bit about how we.
Well, tell us a little bit about the company. Like, when did you begin? And let's hear the company story a little bit.
Okay,
if that's okay.
So, yeah, absolutely. So the company was founded in 2015, September 2015, and it was founded as more or less a side hustle at that point. So it was a gleam in my eye of, better things ahead, as I was struggling through trying to bring about organizational change in some of the organizations that I was working through. And when I say struggle, there's always challenges with that. Like it's never easy to bring about organizational change at any level, whether it's a small company, large company. And so it's a fight.
Hey, you're speaking to the choir. I left IBM in '93, and that was right before Lou Gerstner came on board, and we were going through so many reorg after reorg. The corporate motto was changing, the ethos was changing. We didn't know which way was up most of the time, and everyone was trying to do their best. But sometimes it's just something, the obvious doesn't appear as obvious to everyone, and it's time for a change. And it sounds like you had that same crossroads in your career, and that's what really spawns, in my opinion, innovators. Or entrepreneurs. But again, it takes courage. And so you had the courage to jump, and Cadensoft appeared.
It's exactly what it is. And I had an opportunity with I'm here in Cleveland. That's where our headquarters is based, is here in Cleveland. And I had an opportunity to take on a large mobile refactoring project for a large global manufacturer based in Cleveland. And so I jumped at that opportunity. Like as any entrepreneur knows, you're one project away from making that leap, right? So that was my project, and I took that leap and jumped into it, and I very much enjoyed jumping into that project. It's kind of a funny story. I had already formulated my process, how I think about things, like what my methodology and approach was going to be. Walked in, I did my analysis. This particular organization within the company struggled for several years to bring their mobile product to the market. And what they were able to bring was bug-ridden, crashed consistently, just didn't work properly. The user experience was poor. And, I came in, ran my analysis, made a presentation, said, I need 6 weeks. And I said, we can do one of two things. We can continue status quo, continue operating the way you guys are, or you guys can give me 6 weeks. Let me just put my head down, do what I need to do, get it refactored, and then we'll build up from there. You'll have a stable application. You can launch new features. And it was funny because just about everybody on the team, they're all like, that sounds great, Erik, go for it. And everybody on the team came up to me after the fact, after I had delivered on that promise. And they're like, we all looked at your proposal, looked at what you were promising to do, and we're all like, okay, if he could do it, fantastic, but good luck. He's never going to get it done. And here we are. We managed to, we were successful. So that's really kind of the ethos that we bring into it, is that idea of having the right process, really doing a great job on defining requirements, having traceability to those requirements, excellent communication with our project stakeholders, and then a solid process, measurable process to deliver and track our results as we go. And
well, I don't know about you, Milan, but I felt that in my heart that Erik, I love the smile I saw come across your face when you were talking about that project. And it really was palpable. And so I'm sure that that was a good day when they finally were able to, and they had been trying to do it for how long? And you did it in 6 weeks?
They had been trying to. Now, to be fair, I use a lot of the existing components and everything else.
Sure, but you took it across the, what do they call it? The end zone or whatever.
Yeah, the finish line. Yeah, exactly. Took the components, refactored it, stabilized.
I see that football helmet back there, so I'm trying to get with the lingo. And I have to say, I love Cleveland. Cleveland is an amazing city. I was lucky enough to be there on a centennial or some kind of a centennial. Bob Hope was still alive, and he was the master of ceremony on a ship or a boat going down a regatta it was just amazing. And the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Oh my gosh, what a beautiful place to be from. And I can't get enough of Cleveland. It's just a great city in the Midwest here. And what a work ethic. And you've got the Cleveland Clinic there. Oh my gosh, what a great spot for Cadensoft. Wonderful. Well, so that's your departure of corporate and your first courageous move. You took on this project. And what is Cadensoft up to these days?
So as we kind of moved along from that, we had several opportunities. And one of the first that came along is we're working with a startup in the hospice PBM industry. And they're seeking to kind of be disruptors in their space. And one of the things with hospice care is the challenge of getting patient medications to the patients in a timely manner.
Is that what PBM is?
Pharmacy benefit manager. Yes.
Okay. So sorry, I wasn't familiar with the PBM, but thank you.
Yeah. So PBMs get a bad rap nationally, as they should. And this, hospice is definitely different. The hospice PBMs, they're trying not to be what the traditional national PBMs are. And I won't get into that whole debate, but I will say that this particular hospice PBM has their mission is to be transparent in the pricing. They don't want to make a dime on prescriptions. Their goal is to help hospices control their costs and advance the level of patient care, the quality of life at end of life, and advance the level of patient care at end of life. That's their primary mission. So we were very fortunate to have the opportunity. They came from nothing. It was a complete greenfield application, which, if I don't know, are you familiar with the term greenfield application?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So it was basically scratch.
Exactly. There was nothing. And the founders had their vision and what could be done, and they were seeking out partners and were referred to us. And I dove into it immediately. I said, this is a great mission. If we can pull this off. They explained many of the problems that that hospices have and what they're trying to solve. And I mean, honestly, the mission of advancing the quality of life at end of life is, I don't know anyone who can't get beyond that mission. It's so important. I have my own story with my own grandparents.
Oh, really? Well, yeah, I can tell that this is a passion of yours. And I see on your website, it says revolutionizing hospice care through a mobile app. Like, what does it do?
So what we've done is, the best way to describe it is, we've built a platform for them that links disparate systems together. And then it takes all the data from disparate systems to provide all the functionality that puts it e-prescribe in the clinician's hand, so they can be bedside, they can be with the patient in their home, and they can make sure that the medications are ordered and submitted and adjudicated in a matter of seconds. And we
So Erik, is this a product that you could sell to another hospice?
This is what our customer, that's their platform. That's their proprietary platform that they sell.
Okay. I follow you. So you created it with them.
Yes, Cadensoft is their technology partner, and I actually serve as their fractional CTO.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Wow. That is an important mission, no doubt. Yeah. So yes. What else? How long has that been in going live?
That has been, we went live with the beta version 2 years ago. Wow. And they've been rolling it out and trying to sign customers. They've had a few hiccups along the way, and they're working through, some of those challenges. They're in the midst of, I got to be careful what I say. They are in the midst of a pretty significant growth spurt here towards the end of 2024, and they're looking, enthusiastically towards 2025. And one of the very exciting things about their platform is, again, we've architected everything on modern standards, modern principles and practices. They are well positioned to take advantage of all of the new technologies that are coming out to be able to improve workflow and also be able to scale their business and scale it in such a way that they can leverage technology to scale, so that we can focus on when they do add human resources or human capital to their mix, those human assets are now focused on higher value targets versus simple things like data entry and phone calls and things like that are, again, they're not driving value.
That's really, really exciting. And so let's talk a little bit, if you don't mind, could I ask you a little about Health Sync Agent? What is Health Sync Agent? I know that's a flagship project and product of yours. Is it okay if we chat a little bit about Health Sync Agent?
Sure.
Yes, absolutely. Very excited to.
If you don't mind, Erik, let me run with this for just a few, and please embellish.
By all means, Milan.
Rose, as you well know, over the years there have been dozens, hundreds of electronic medical record platforms in the marketplace. Many have evaporated. Many were acquired by larger firms, et cetera. Many never reached critical mass, went out of business, and so forth. But nonetheless, there's a potpourri of disparate systems out there in the marketplace, never designed to play nice in the sandbox with others. They were simply silos unto themselves from a technical perspective. So many practices have matured, they've grown, Organizations have decided that they want to migrate from one platform to another. They want to incorporate new technologies. For example, wearable medical devices. That's a relatively new entree into the healthcare mainstream in terms of patient care. These devices are phenomenal in terms of what they can do in terms of tracking patients' health, their metabolic conditions, et cetera, but the data from those products needs to ultimately get into that electronic medical record, whichever one it might be in use. Otherwise, it's useless information.
Mm.
There has to be a single source of truth for the clinicians to look at pertaining to any given patient. Well, the reality is many of these organizations don't have depth in terms of IT resources.
Mm.
They don't have previous integration experience in melding these different platforms together that were never originally designed to work together. So one of the things that I found extremely interesting as it related to Cadensoft was being able to capitalize on, as Erik was alluding to, the hospice client, taking what was developed there from a knowledge-based perspective and parlaying that into other opportunities to create links between these disparate platforms. So that's exactly what we're offering the marketplace today, is the opportunity to take any data from any electronic medical record and to move that data to another platform, to move information back into that EMR, et cetera. And one of the key ingredients is we don't need to involve, which was always historically the case, the technical expertise, blessing, and involvement of the EMR vendor itself. We know how to do this without even having to involve them in the process. So we've streamlined all of the historical.
I just have to stop you for a minute.
Sure.
It's not just the streamlining. Hey, back in the day, to integrate one of these systems with another system, $40,000, $80,000, $100,000 just to put the interface in. And then you had to pay a monthly service fee to make it sure it worked. So I hear you. This is, and then all the red tape, because that vendor doesn't want you in there. You might upset their apple cart, right?
Exactly.
Sorry if I'm being a little bit too real here.
Well,
but
it's the truth. And I mean, typically, unless it's something they've brought to the table for their client,
exactly,
they don't want anybody else
they want account control.
Precisely.
And that's the old way. We live in a new world, and a world where people, and I don't care if it's a hospital, a doctor's office, anybody, we're IT savvy, and we know what we want. And those days of holding information hostage, those days are over. And it sounds like what you're doing is giving that power back to the people who own the data.
Precisely. We can make this process, which now we can get it down, Rose, to weeks, with development, with testing, et cetera, weeks. And it's a very cost-effective alternative approach. We're not hosting the data. We're very cognizant of PHI and protecting the integrity of the data, et cetera. And we have all of the requisite protocols in place to do so. But we know how to do this, and we can do this very effectively and very expeditiously. So that's Health Sync Agent. And it's one of the things that we are absolutely waving our flag regarding. We're very proud of it.
Excellent. Now, would you call this in the category of application an interface engine?
What's the best description, Erik? What would you say?
It would be, yes. I mean, there's definitely that aspect of it where it's that interface engine again, where we have our engine that's processing the data and running through, and there's two components of it. There's the automation piece that will perform the extraction. We'll take it, and then based on our our clients' needs, we'll push it where it needs to go, be that another EMR, be that into an Azure data warehouse in the Azure cloud, something like that, where they might want to link that data up to OpenAI. Again, we talk about the tagline, the engine that drives innovators. Several of our business partners are the innovators in this space, and they're having trouble getting that data. So we act
Excellent.
as that engine to get them the data that they need to provide true value to these smaller clinical practices.
Do you ever put a user interface on it?
On our product, it's pretty much all behind the scenes. We will do, there's not a user interface for end use consumers of the data, but for any of the technology or the technologists that work with our customers,
they can check it out.
They might need to get in there and diagnose things.
Yeah.
Things
This
can
sounds,
go wrong,
I
right?
think this is an amazing product. It sounds like it's ready for prime time. It sounds like it's going to be saving a lot of time and money for the clients that you work with. Is there a use case that you're willing to share?
Milan?
Well, there are a number of things in play as we speak, Rose. Again, I joined Cadensoft but months ago. So I have been taking my contacts that I've developed over the last 40 years, sharing with them the intricacies of what HealthSync Agent can do. We have a number of things in play at the present time. Again, with vendors that historically and with companies that historically have endeavored to get the cooperation of the EMR vendor in order to integrate their product or service. They've been unsuccessful, and now they're working with us. NDAs are going to prevent me from citing specific.
Oh, absolutely. That's what I was thinking, a use case. Like the audience may not be as techy as you and I. And so a use case, maybe if I kind of, let me project what I'm looking for. It's like, so let's say that a use case for this would be where I have a mainframe, let's say EMR system, and or some EMR system, and it's got information about, let's say, women that have, had over 35 that have had, trouble with this type of a pregnancy or whatever. Okay. And we capture that information and we want to do some diagnosis, or we want to do some research and research on what's going on here, like what is happening. And so we could use the interface or the engine, the HealthSync agent, to maybe extract some data and push it into a scientific system that would maybe do some crunching and help, do some maybe, going against it. I know that life sciences uses data dumps all the time. That would be one use case. Another use case is just, hey, I want the information from the hospital to come into my doctor office system. That's another use case. So I'm just trying to help our listeners and our watchers, our video watchers, understand that this is really the glue, if you will, between the old data center and actually getting it in the hands of people that could maybe do some research with the data, maybe do some treatment with the data. And am I following you guys?
Yes.
You just said some great examples. Yes.
Yes, that's you're tracking exactly. It's those exact things where you want to be able to, you want to look at the big data, you want to look at the scientific data model, you want to aggregate things. So for better patient outcomes, the pushing data to assist with the clinical practices, to assist with their business workflows, to streamline their operations. That's another significant use case. Mapping patient journeys and being able to improve communication between the clinical practice and the patient to provide a better level of care. Those kinds of things. All of those things are insights that taking that data from the EMR, getting into a more practical application so they can better make use of it. And
that sounds awesome. That's definitely needed, especially with all of the new folks that are entering medicine, whether they're doctors or nurses, these guys and gals are very computer literate, and they know that data somewhere. And they probably are pulling their hair out to say, hey, why can't I get access to this data so I can, do my job? So those two are amazing. So you guys are do infrastructure, you do mobile development, you have managed services, especially with the hospice, which is amazing. I don't want to miss a trick here. Have we missed any of your flagship projects that you wanted to talk about?
Eric, if I could just touch on one other item very briefly. Rose, the 80-20 rule still holds true for much of what's taking place in the healthcare arena today. For most healthcare payers, 20% of their patients is where they spend 80% of their money. These are typically patients that are very high cost because of comorbidities. They have multiple chronic conditions that are afflicting them. Some early onset, some developed only over time as the patients aged, etc. But getting one's arms around how to manage these patients is paramount to many practitioners throughout not only Michigan, but the country, because they're now bearing risk. Many of these practices were previously in the fee-for-service realm, etc. Now they're risk-bearing. So being able to understand what's taking place with their patients is absolutely critical from their perspective. We are in the position of helping to facilitate access to this disparate information, even if it doesn't happen to reside in your EMR. We can facilitate that access. So the ability to better manage these patients with chronic conditions is one of the things that flows from this. And Rose, many of our clients are in that space.
Sure.
We're endeavoring to improve outcomes for patients that are at high risk of readmission to hospitals within 30 days, et cetera, which is a huge financial penalty from Medicare's perspective, et cetera.
That is so true. And so back in the day, we used to have the 3 Ps: the patient, the provider, and the payer. But these days, the provider and the payer or the insurer, the provider is taking on that risk, is what I'm hearing. And they are now responsible to keep, which is a good thing, they care whether the patient really gets better.
Indeed.
So they don't want to, they have a financial motivation as well as a patient care motivation to get the information so that patient doesn't come back in the hospital soon. Exactly. And so they're a very critical client, prospective client of Cadensoft. I can see that clear as day. Awesome. I thank you so much for bringing that up, because the world has changed there too. The hospital is not only responsible to make the patient better, they're also responsible to do it in the best way possible, and also to keep an eye on the bottom line. So I really appreciate that you provide tools to those guys as well. So I appreciate this so much. Is there any concluding points or comments that you guys would like to make before we shut down the podcast today?
Eric?
No, I just thank you so much, Rose. This is an absolute pleasure for me, and I'm sure for Milan as well. I really appreciate your time and the opportunity that you've given to let us talk about Cadensoft and HealthSync Agent and the exciting things that we're doing. So thank you again.
It's my pleasure. I knew that Milan was working with you, Eric, and some of the work you guys are doing, the hospice work and the HealthSync Agent, bringing integration engines into the 2020s it's so important work. You guys are doing very, very important work, and it's my pleasure to have you. And my friend Milan, it's so good to see you again. And thank you.
Rose, thank you for the invitation, and just as an extension to all of your listeners and all the people that view your podcasts, there's no such thing as a bad question. There's no such thing as a project that doesn't deserve attention. So if you're thinking of something that you think this is just too small for me to bring to so-and-so's attention, bring it to ours. Talk with us about it. We'd be happy to carve out time to speak with you. As Erik alluded to, not every project starts out at a 7-figure level. Many of these start out small, and we're more than willing to cut our teeth, prove our mettle on smaller related issues that give you the confidence to work with us long term. So let us swing the bat. We'll look forward to
I don't want to interrupt you, but I'm gonna, knowing that you guys took on hospice as one of your first projects, that tells me that you are not looking for the dollar signs. I mean, of course, you're in business like we all are. We're needing to, do our profit and losses and all of that. But I could tell from the minute you said that you guys worked on hospice that we all know that they aren't, flush. So I love this last comment that you're open to really, and that you're open to working with people that have a question, have a need. That's very commendable.
give us a call. Thank you, Rose, so much.
You're welcome. And with that, we're going to say goodbye to our listeners. And until next time, see you later. Bye.